And I'm going to go ahead and take us on this conversation today. So I'm really excited to have everyone here. I'm Kim Hansel, editor of Fostering Families Today magazine. Today, we're going to be talking about tough conversations, understanding addictive behaviors. We'll be doing these conversations throughout the year. Some of the other topics we're looking at doing are what to do instead of giving notice or calling the police on a youth in your home, how to best serve LGBTQ youth in care, and other topics like race and sex, you know, the ones that always make kids uncomfortable at the dinner table. We're going to get those out in the open and have those conversations with our viewers who most of the time are foster, adoptive, and kinship families who face these issues in their homes all the time. So I'm super excited to have you guys here. If you will jump to the next slide, that would be great. Fostering Families Today is a bi-monthly publication that is dedicated to educating foster, adoptive, and kinship families across the country. And this year, we're also doing a couple of special issues. We have a higher education guide coming out in April. And then later this fall, we'll be doing one on taxes and finances for youth in foster care. So those will be in addition to our 6 issues that we do every year. So thank you so much. Let's do the next slide. At Fostering Media Connections, we also have our Youth Voice program where we work with youth who are in foster care or recently exited foster care, and we give them opportunities to learn about journalism, to write, to participate in contests. Some of the people on our call today are participants in that program. There's information on how to connect with those. So we hope that if there's any young people here, that you guys will check those out and join us. So you want to jump to the next slide. I will introduce our panelists who I'm super excited to have here. First of all, we have Fabian Tolan, who's a 25-year-old who has overcome everything life has thrown his way. His hobbies include endurance running, biking, playing guitar, cooking, volunteering, listening to Juice WRLD, writing articles, advocating, and other things that help him maintain a healthy mindset. When not working, Fabian enjoys watching MMA and UFC because the fighters are easy to resonate with. He currently works as a host at Blue Sky Bistro in Morro Bay. Thanks so much for joining us today, Fabian. We also have Joshua Lyons, who was born in Minnesota and currently lives in Oklahoma. He was raised in kinship care by his Aunt Mary Lyons, who's also joining us with his brothers after his mother was murdered. He began his struggle with drug and alcohol use starting in his teen years, and it has taken many years and treatments to regain his sobriety, which he still works to maintain today. Thanks so much for joining us, Joshua. We also have Mary Lyons, who is an Ojibwe elder, knowledge wisdom keeper, empowerment coach, humanitarian activist, and author of Wisdom Lessons, focusing on self-development, self-care, and personal empowerment. She is mother of 9, grandmother of 12, and great-grandmother of 1, and has fostered many children in the past 50 years. Thanks so much for joining me today, Mary, with your expertise. Awesome. And then we have Erica Johns, who serves as the clinical program director in Reston, Virginia for Sandstone Care. She earned a bachelor's degree in psychology and criminal justice, along with master's degrees in mental health and counseling. She is a licensed professional counselor and has served years of clinical experience in both residential and intensive outpatient settings, and is trained in trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, family-based therapy, and has extensive experience with both DBT and CBT. So hopefully she'll tell us a little bit more about those things later as well. Thanks for joining us, Erica. So I'm super excited to have everyone on here today. I'm going to start the conversation with the people who have lived experience. So Fabian and Joshua, I'd like to have you guys give us a little background on your journey through foster care and struggles with addictive behaviors. Fabian, can you start us off?
Sure. I was born into foster care. My mom was in jail when she was pregnant with me, and so of course she wasn't able to take care of me. I was supposed to live with my sister. She couldn't take care of me because she was 17, still in high school, living her life. I went through 12 different foster homes before being placed with a home where they took guardianship of me, and then adopting me, followed by them both passing away when I was 12 and 14, to be only put back into the foster care system, where many horrible things had happened, and it was just putting group homes and more foster homes, and it's been rough. I was molested when I was a youth, and um, that was something that I dealt with, and just it was just hard being in foster care. The first day I was in the group home, I see a kid overdose. It was rough. It wasn't an easy journey, and even after turning 18, it was still pretty rough. So that's pretty much like a brief overview of my foster care experience.
That's perfect. When did you start dealing with addictive behaviors yourself, Fabian?
It started young. I was addicted to basically, um, you know, I was addicted to attention. So it started pretty young, like in the classrooms, trying to be the class clown, have all the attention on me, and it starts. That's pretty much when I started. Well, now looking back, I can see that's when the addictive behavior had started.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing. I know a lot of this stuff is really hard. And we always try to tell young people not to overshare if they, there's things they're not comfortable feeling sharing, that's totally fine. So Joshua, how about for you? Can you just give us a little background on your journey through foster care and struggles with addictive behaviors?
Yeah, I came into my Aunt Mary's house when I was about 9.5 after my mom was murdered. Me and my two brothers came to live in her house, and she took us in, and it was pretty much like from where I lived and how I lived was like a 180-degree change from moving in from the cities to the suburbs. And us in the cities kind of thought of the people in the suburbs as rich people because they had cars that worked and they had house in the fridge, food in the fridge, and they had nice houses and jobs. And so it was different just moving into a place like that from where I came from. I had a lot of, so I brought in a lot of memories that haunted me from the life that I lived before. And then the feelings that came with mom being murdered and being into a home where my Aunt Mary was, saying that she's my mom now, or she's taking care of me, and she has a couple sisters, but I seen them as my aunt and my two cousins. And so, I still felt like I did not have a mom or a family other than my two brothers that came with me. So I pretty much, I felt out of place. I mean, I was lighter colored, they're darker than me, so I didn't fit in there. So it was really hard to fit in to that situation. And, bringing in some of the memories that I had from where I came from and some of the feelings that I had, it brought me to, finding a release for that, or a solution for the feelings that I had. So I went out and I found people that were kind of similar to trying to get away from those feelings or find a release. And there was a lot of friends that I hooked up with that were drinking. And I found out that was a great release to get away from some of those memories that I wanted to get away from. Made me feel like I was accepted and felt like I was in the right place. Worries being gone, felt like I could breathe. It was just a total release. And So I kind of stuck to that stuff because I know that that worked to make me feel inside, you know. And so that's where it all began.
How old were you when that kind of started?
Well, I mean, literally I had the first experience with drinking with my mom before she died. She had told me that it was okay if she said if I was ever going to do any kind of drinking or drugs, that I better do them with her. So one day when I was about 9, I asked her if I could have a beer, and we had a beer. And that night was very memorable because I've had, you know, about 8 or 9 of them or whatever when I was young. And me, my mom, and my little brother, Ozzy, we had a great time. He was, you know, I was always beating up on Ozzy, but that night he got to beat up on me because I didn't have any kind of control. So he was pushing me around, and you know, we were all laughing. My mom was laughing. So that was an experience that I kept with me, and that's where I knew that there was some kind of answer to having a good feeling. And so I guess that, you know, in my search, the first thing that comes to mind was a situation when I was 13 years old, to where the cops had been called on me because I was in somebody else's house, and the mom called the cops, and I was up on a roof, and they were trying to tell me to get down. And you know, I had an episode, I think, I barely remember it or whatever, but I think I was telling them to shoot me, and I was blacked out. I ended up falling off the roof, and they ended up bringing me into detox. And that's kind of where the troubles had started, you know, legally, and where it started affecting me and my life and the people around me directly, I think.
So that's my next question is, like, when did you realize that things in your life weren't healthy and that you needed to work on them? Was that the time for you, or did that come later?
No, that came a lot later. I mean, in the meantime, I knew that I was an alcoholic because I've seen alcoholics and I know what alcoholics is. You know, I grew up with it and it was accepted. So I didn't really care. I wanted, you know, where I grew up. That's what I was accepted. I thought that I was kind of supposed to be an alcoholic. So I didn't really care, but it started affecting, you know, it took me a long time to where it affected my life enough to where I wanted to change. You know, I think I had about, I don't know, about 15 minor consumptions before I was 21 or something like that. I've had like DUIs. I mean, I've been into treatment like probably 10 times. I kind of lost count. From 13 till 18, it was like every single year for months on end, I was in treatment, never did a whole year in school or anything like that. And then afterwards, you know, kind of when I left the house, you know, I'd get a job, get a car, get a place to stay, get my IDs, and, you know, have like kind of a life. And then every year or so, I would lose all of that and have to start over. And I'd get a car, get a job, start over. And so I tried different ways for a long time. You know, I'm hard-headed like that. And it took me until, you know, 25 to where I was like, okay, let me try to change something. I'm going to stop the hard drugs. I want to stop the amphetamines and the psychedelics and stuff. I'll just stick to weed and, you know, some beer or whatever. You know, I just tried everything. And in the end, it ended up to where when I actually felt like I had a hole in my soul, and I felt like I did everything that I could to make myself feel better. You know, I practiced drinking for many, many years to drink better, but that's, you know, that never helped. And there was just there just came a time when I felt defeated enough to where I kind of like said that I want to throw the gloves down and I don't want to, I can't do this. I can't, I need some help. So I wasn't really a big relationship with the creator or anything like that, but I remember honestly asking myself and asking anybody out there with all the truth that I had in me, like if there's any way that you could make me feel better, you know, throw me an opportunity and I'll do whatever it takes, but I don't want to feel this way any longer.
Yeah.
And you know, opportunities came and I took them.
Thank you so much for sharing. I know that this is, you know, hard to reflect on some of these sometimes. So,
Mhm.
Fabian, how about for you? When did you know that like things weren't healthy and you needed to work on them?
Around the age of 17, because I had started getting into the harder drugs. So around 14, after my mom died, I would smoke weed, and I didn't really see any type of harm to that. And I started using heroin with some friends to find release from all the pain and trauma that I had dealt with. And I was just taking a shower one day, and I just realized I was committing subconscious suicide, and I realized that things had become unmanageable, and I was able to get off of the heroin, but I then found alcohol and started over consuming alcohol, and so yeah, around the age 17, I realized like this is more than just a problem. It's uh, I need to work on it, but I mean it's easier said than done. So yeah, I would say around 17.
For sure. I mean, and I think like regardless of whether you're in foster care or not, there is alcohol available everywhere in our society. So, and especially young people, that's what a lot of them are doing. So I know it's readily available. And so that's a challenge. So for you, Fabian, what has helped you on the road to overcome some of those things and get to a healthier place?
Just a lot of making a lot of music. I started writing music when I was 12, and I didn't really take it serious until after my mom died. And so while using drugs and experimenting with drugs, I would, you know, um, get distracted. So there'd be times where I wouldn't be using drugs because I would be using my coping mechanisms, which was playing guitar, singing. I started running around that age too, around 14, and I think that's what that kind of music was really what kind of got me through um, some of the most difficult times in my life.
Thanks. How about for you, Joshua? What kind of helped you get on the road to healthier choices?
Well, I joined a 12-step program that I was blessed with a lot of like-minded individuals that wanted to grow spiritually and mentally. And so I kind of like put myself in the middle of all that and kind of did what they did and learned in the end, I learned how to have fun and how to trust people. I've gained a lot of friends, like real friends that actually care and would do anything for me. Um, so we have a lot of like get-togethers, and you know, I go on vacations a lot. I just try to stay in the middle of all these other people that have like-minded, um, you know, sobriety and stuff like that. So I have to be in the middle of all that to keep myself kind of caged in with that. And so that's what helps me keep on that road to sobriety. And from there, I'm just like kind of learning a new way to live. I feel like I'm going on 4 years of sobriety, and I actually feel like I'm about 4 years old from this new life that I live, you know, so I'm
That's
still
great.
learning how to live this life.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have friends who have struggled with alcohol use too. And I think that mindset of learning how to have fun without it is a big step and a challenge sometimes. So that's awesome. 4 years of sobriety. That's amazing. So I want to kind of switch gears and talk to Mary just a little bit, because you've lived this with Joshua and stayed with him through it all. So tell me a little bit about what your experience was dealing with his drug and alcohol use, and when did you know it was getting out of control and it needed to be addressed?
Well, first of all, I'm in recovery as well. So it's all very familiar to me. And I'm from the boarding school era and the Removal Act. And so was my younger sister. So that's why we didn't get to know one another, because we were all taken away. And she had a little bit more harder time than I did. And when I decided to sober up, wasn't just like I decided. I too had gone through 6 or 7 treatments and that there, is that I just knew. And I am from kind of the old school. My father was like, it's my way, the highway. This is it, Once I stop fighting for you or yelling at you means the day I stop caring and I don't want to see you ever again. That was his bottom line. So with Josh, I always knew I was going to have somewhat difficulties because of my younger sister. Unfortunately, a lot of her use was from a lot of pain. And there was just you just can't help somebody that just doesn't want it. So when this happened to her, I have to tell you, she was sober though, I think, if I'm not mistaken, she was sober for months before this happened. And the evening she was murdered, we were all going to a sobriety powwow at the Minneapolis Indian Center, and she was going home to change. So the events that happened after that was, I was born into, there was, myself and 3 girls, and I think there was 12 brothers. I don't know, can't remember. A lot of them had passed away. And myself being single and out there, my brothers were willing to take them, but their wives didn't want to take them all. It's not that they didn't love them. It's just that they had a bunch of children themselves. So I took the 3 boys. I was going to take them anyways, but everybody wanted them. And I said, no, they're going to stay with me. And the thing is, those 3 boys, Josh and Oz, were a lot older than the youngest one. And the youngest one had experienced a lot of the trauma. He was there when his mother was murdered. But Josh had probably more time with, well, I think he did have more time with her since the time he was birthed until, that day she was gone. She always had him with her. I just knew when I wouldn't hang out too much because I didn't use, right? And the community she was in was pretty abrasive, pretty using. It was really kind of too dangerous even for myself to be in, because, you can fall right back into that wormhole, that dark hole real easy. So I opted out of it, and I had to keep my father's thinking, this is it. I can't stray any other way. So it's pretty tough. So I did, I kind of grew up in parenting in a healthy way with those boys, because it was like, it's my way or the highway, but it really wasn't the highway. And so I knew enough about treatment centers and stuff and their behaviors, because Josh was really easygoing. But one of the things I learned about him was he would always get involved with these kids that were really high maintenance and they were just awful, right? But they came from wealthy families. And there was one of his friends in out there, I won't say his name in out there, that he kind of started being a parent to. And that kid's mother was a chronic alcoholic. I mean, and this poor kid probably grew up in my garage because he would come and stay in my garage, and Josh would sneak him clothes and sneak him food and all this stuff. And then they would hike off. But anyways, I just started noticing him not really having the ability or even to adapt to school, of wanting to be into school or to do things. But he was very, his recreational sports were always dangerous. If you wanted to get him into wrestling, he didn't like wrestling. He would probably want to be on a bike were, and they were expensive, let me tell you. And he would do all these tricks with them and ride all over the place, and he skateboarded, and those skateboards too, I mean, were extremely expensive too. But he was willing to work for, every little bit and part that he had. So I had this night and day with him. It was cold and hot, and as long as he had a routine and we didn't stray from it, he was okay. But soon as we didn't do it, it was like everything fell apart for him. And he would just go. And then it got to the point where he stopped asking me or telling me where he went to because I kept such a close eye on him. And mind you, when I got him in too, I had him into treatment right away. Into therapists and not treatment, but therapists and this. And we met this really nice guy. His name was Mike, and he was with one of the treatment centers and his stuff. And he was awesome. He played basketball with him. Well, lo and behold, right around New Year's Eve, I don't know if it was before or after, I can't remember, it's been a while ago. Mike went in to meet with the boys and he ended up dying and had a heart attack there. So then the trauma kicked back in for them. And so there was they just had a streak of bad luck. And his younger brother just couldn't adjust. So I had to send him away to treatment center. So I think Josh was kind of really uncertain, or he was waiting for when was he going to leave. So he started sabotaging just about everything in his life. But mind you, I could smell weed. I could smell beer. I just knew everything. I knew when your eyes are glossy, me couldn't fool me. I just knew it. You can't fool a person that had walked that life. And so I would talk to him and this stuff, and if he didn't want to participate, he's right. I loved him enough. If he wasn't going to listen to me, I was going to put him in treatment. But it got to the point where he was in so many treatments that he could people please anybody, even in his schools and out there where I'd have him in special schools because of this, and him being into court for a lot of things, because, he had a lot of, somebody, they say to him, Josh, you got a cigarette, like a truant officer. And you go, yeah, sure. Without thinking, or, come on, Josh, you got to come into the class, and he'd leave all his garbage there. So he had these crazy ticketing, right? So I was always in the courthouse and juvenile court and stuff with him over and over. And I got to know his attorney so well. He was like family. And then the judge that overseeing him later on in our state in Minnesota, her husband became the governor. So surprising, I had ran into her not too long ago, and she got to know him real well, right? And she asked, how's he doing? When I told her, she just kind of smiled and she says, I always did like that young man. And because he was so nice. Even when I had to go to the police station, or if I had to go to the jail to pick him up and the stuff, I swear, all those police and those guards and the stuff, hey, Josh, they talked to him like he was his buddy because he was so nice. So his problem wasn't so much as the anger of wanting to he did have that mean side of him, but so he wouldn't cross it. But normally he was a happy-go-lucky drunk and druggy that he got to the point where he was getting stupid. And so I was constantly from the time he was there until he was 18, because he couldn't wait to get out of the house. He just couldn't wait to say, legally, you don't have nothing to say over me. But I was always there for him, and I was happy that he could always trust me, because he'd call me up in the middle of the night or whatever it is, and I'd go. If I didn't love him, I wouldn't show up. I'd just say, you're on your own. So it was just that it was his, he didn't have the ability to want something. And when I knew, even after a year of his continuous self-sabotaging, I knew I was in for something. And I checked a lot of the kids that he was with, it was just endless. And he really started teaching me how to be a parent of a child that was extremely in need. I had to walk that walk with him. It wasn't fun, by no means, because I was continuously wondering, is he alive? Is he alive? Is he alive? And even when he was really little, he just wandered off all by himself. He never got permission. He'd get up and he'd just go do it. There was many times I found in his room, I would go in there and there'd be people in his room sleeping. He'd try to let them sleep in there quietly and get them out in the morning. So when I would clean his room and his stuff, I'd find liquor and his stuff in his closet and that there. And he was young. So I would call
Mary,
up and then treatment would be again.
yeah, I want to give Josh a chance to respond to what you're saying, but I do have one question for you first. So I see a lot of foster and adoptive parents in groups saying like, my home, my rules, and I draw the firm line at drugs. If I find drugs, you're out. So what do you say to families who have that mindset?
Well, I tell you, first of all, if you go into foster parenting and stuff, you better know your resources because it's not going to be normal. It will not be normal. Don't go in there thinking they're going to be normal. Don't think they're going to adjust to the way you would like to see it. And don't think love is going to be enough. You have to meet them where they're at, and you have to be prepared at especially a young age, even older, that they're going to sabotage themselves because they just have no self-worth in them. And you have to walk that fine line with them. And when that structure is there for them, and when you tell them, you can be angry. There's some people that say, I want you to, excuse my language, but get the H out of here. I don't want you, call the cops, get this kid out of here. Mine was always, I had my therapists, my treatment people, I knew them so well that I already had space for him before I said, you know what, come on, you're going. And his younger brother that the youngest one of them on his 16th birthday, because he was really good up until he was 15 too. And then he started raising heck. But on his 16th birthday, he was real cocky with me. And I had 2 police on the other side of the door in the kitchen and this stuff. And they took him and I put him in treatment for a year. And, if they don't want to do anything for even summer in that there, I saved a lot of money and I would take Josh, I just didn't want him to be in treatment, but he needed to be on his own. And without that male figure there teaching him, I found places like the YMCA way up at Camp Woodwagon and stuff for cost me a lot of money for 3 weeks and this stuff, but it gave him something, but it also gave me vacation for him and I knew he was going to be safe. So it was worth every penny. So that's why I say, when you go in to be a foster care parent and stuff, it's not going to be fun. It's that the thing is, and love is not going to be enough. And you really have to see them through their needs and not what you think you're going to give them and do all of this stuff. It's not that way, but I can tell you when they're older, the return is awesome. It's awesome.
So Joshua, what are your thoughts on, like Mary's support through all of the years?
So it was a lot of what she said about like meet me halfway or whatever, kind of like in treatments, for her to show up for family, family groups and sessions like that, and to be with me the whole time rather than just put me into a place and get me out of her hair for a while. She was walking the walk with me. And I'm pretty sure that she went to, classes and speaks and stuff, how to deal with certain situations. So some of the things that she didn't know, or she was like learning how to do this too. So she put in a lot of work, that I could see. She also, like I said, she walked the walk too. So the rules that she had and the traits that she wanted, she kind of showed me rather than just telling me, so she kind of she just matched what she said a lot. Her telling me that trying to teach me that my actions have consequences took me a long time to figure out, but she'd let me know that, but in the same way she'd say like, you might think that I'm being mean to you or whatever, but I don't like your actions, but I love you as a person. And that stuff didn't resonate with me till later, but and I understand it now. But for her saying that, you know, that she is doing this, and it's not because she's mad at me, it's mad at my actions. So those kind of things stuck with me. They might not have ignited anything at the time, but later on they were things that I kind of like live by and would teach somebody else. So
That's
she
great.
had a lot of support for me.
Awesome. Fabian, how about for you? Did you have somebody who was kind of, helping guide you through any of this? Did you have some, outlets that were helpful?
Honestly, no. I was really one of those type of people who kind of just push everyone away. I had a good friend who helped me, kind of like similar to what she was.
Fabian, we're having a hard time hearing you now. Can anybody else hear Fabian?
No.
Hello.
Oh, there you are.
Hello?
Sorry, we lost you.
Okay. No, I was saying that yeah, no, there wasn't really too much support for me growing up. I was more of the type that pushed people away. But similar to what she was saying, I had a friend who would sneak me in, let me hang out at the house. I would ditch school, come over, hang out. It would help me. He would help me with food, and even now, up until this day, when things get rough, he still sneaking in, and getting food. And but as far as having guidance, there wasn't ever really anybody or anything that uh kind of guided me towards the right direction. I kind of just utilized the friends that I had and clung onto them very closely, and allowed my friends to kind of help me through whatever I was going through at the moment. It was
Great.
it was a real depressing it was real depressing times. Let me just say that, because I was untrustworthy of adults, and if anybody, just because of the things that I've gone through, the multiple foster homes, the being molested, the XYZ. So it just kind of just made me recluse, and just like I said, just cling on to the friends that I did have in order to get through the days and time, because I was what they call a runaway. So they'd put me in a group home and I'd run away, or they put me in a foster home and I'd run away, and I'd always come back to where I'm at right now. And so it was real depressing times, but that's just the truth. That's just a sad truth, and the reality for most foster youth. It's sad, but hopefully things like this can start shedding light on the certain type of behaviors that come along with what gets you started with the alcohol or the drink or the drugs or whatever it is that you get addicted to.
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad that you have that place to go to, because everybody needs people who care about them and a place to land safely. So I'm going to switch gears for a second, and we're going to go over to Erica. And I just want to talk a little bit about, your professional experience, and how common is it that youth who've been in foster care have these kind of struggles with addictive behaviors, and why do you believe that is?
Great question. So definitely youth in foster care, and there's lots of risk factors that go into whether somebody is a high risk of developing whether a substance use disorder or just an addictive behavior disorder. But what we see in all of us, and you may not realize it, we each have what's called an adverse childhood experience score. And there's an assessment out there called the ACE. It's a 10-question assessment. And it asks questions about your childhood. And the higher the score you are, the higher, more likely you are in adulthood to have experienced mental health concerns, even health problems related to mental health concerns, or develop an addiction to whether a substance or a behavior. And so what we see is individuals who have been through the foster care system are at a heightened risk of developing an addictive behavior and addictive substance use disorder, because many of those individuals tend to have a higher score. Individuals who have a higher score of 5 or more are 10 times more likely to experience an addiction in adulthood compared to individuals who have never experienced childhood trauma during their childhood years. Again, there's a lot of other factors that go into that. It's not just your experiences, it's family history, genetics, environment, all of that plays a role into the likelihood of you developing some sort of addictive behavior. But again, individuals in foster care have a high score, tend to have a high score on their ACE, but then also most of them tend to have a family history of addiction that runs in their family. And then couple that with their environment too, like we kind of heard before, seeing alcohol in the house and how it can be utilized, all of those things lead into someone's likelihood of developing an addictive disorder or behaviors.
Sure. So what is your advice to families who may be suspecting that a child is struggling with addiction? And I know it can start out, simply like video games, cell phone uses, like I think those kind of build up and lead into them. So what can these families do to get these kids help, before it does become like really out of control?
Yeah, perfect. So the basics of it, one is just learn about addiction, whether it be substance or behavioral, recognizing the signs. I heard Mary talking exactly about that with Joshua, just recognizing that something was off, that we were hanging out with people that may not be the best influences for us. Like she said, she could smell the alcohol, she could smell the marijuana. So recognizing some of the addiction signs and symptoms that we see out there. And then two, like you guys kind of just said, most of it tends to be of a really bad coping skill for more things that are going on. So it's having that honest conversation, whether it be video games or cell phone. Most of us sometimes don't even realize that we're addicted to something, depending on what it may be, until someone brings it to our attention. I always joke about coffee being an addiction until you don't have that like third or fourth cup of coffee. And next thing you know, you're having like migraines, you feel kind of a little sluggish. And you're like, oh, I just need another cup of coffee. But you don't realize that your body is physically dependent on that substance. So some of us don't even realize the behavior we're displaying or the substance that we're using is really truly categorized as an addiction. And then seeking help, whether it be getting support from family, friends, a support group, professional help. Your pediatrician is a phenomenal resource. Many people don't even think about asking their medical doctor for resources for their children, but they do have resources, whether it be professional help, support groups out in the system, out in the community. Like Mary said, and I will empathize, some of them can be pricey, but nowadays, now that mental health is becoming really a forefront focus for a lot of organizations, there's a lot more cheaper or free options out there for support for children and their support groups too. I can speak for Sandstone specifically. We have every week with each of our programs a multifamily group that is specifically designed to providing support for the family members and their caregivers, because they also need just as much support as our clients do too. So my biggest advice really is just reaching out, asking out for help, and also knowing you are not alone in this. Like, you are not the only one who's experienced something similar to this. There is help out there. You just have to ask for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. If you guys want to start dropping questions in the chat, we'll try to get to those. I have just a couple more questions. I want to circle back to Joshua and Fabian. What advice would you give to foster, adoptive, kinship families, who might have a youth in their home who's struggling with addiction? What would your advice be to them? Fabian, you want to go first?
My advice for that would be to, first of all, just to show support, to not look at it as where we need to punish them or discipline them because they're doing this, but just show ultimate support. And not only that, but maybe have a dinner where you say, hey, invite some, the friends that they hang out with are possibly doing drugs too, and just to have them over too, and just to know that you have that, just to have ultimate support, just not to chastise them, and have a family dinner where you invite their friends over, so you kind of get to know who they're hanging out with, and know that their friends also have support too through their friends, foster parents, or whoever they're with. But not only that, I think it's a important thing to really just try to get to the root causes of what's causing the addiction with the youth. You know what I mean? Having conversations, being engaged, or even introducing them to new activities and trying new things. You know what I mean? And not only that, but not only educating the parents, but educating the youth on, hey, you know, this is what you're doing now, and and this is how it can affect you 10 years down the road, and and maybe take them to an AA meeting or an NA meeting or something along the lines to see that, hey, if I continue to live this type of lifestyle, these are the consequences that I'm going to have to live with. So it's just mostly about support and not chastising the kid or youth, or just ultimate support, and to not make it seem like you're downgrading them or punishing them. A lot of the times, I mean, I've had social workers who, would chastise me or make me feel guilty for, messing up. And I felt like, well, maybe a hug and would be more sufficient than, getting yelled at. So I don't know. I don't know if that's like the perfect answer, but that's just what it comes off the top of my head.
I think that's great. I mean, I have a 17 and a 13-year-old, and I think all of those things are super important, just being involved, meeting their friends, all great advice. So Joshua, do you have anything that you'd want to add?
My mom, she let me know that there was something that was needed to be addressed, and even though I didn't know that, a lot of the treatments that she went into, or that I went into, I learned a little bit about myself in each one of those things, and I would never take any of those experiences away, because I've learned a lot of stuff. I mean, I think that those treatments in itself, for me to be focusing on myself and some of the memories that I have, or some of the experience that I had, would give me a option to get those things out of me. And so for me, doing a fourth and fifth step, I really believe that that it saved my life. So she put me into some treatments. She also gave me other options too. Like she said, that Widgewagon trip, I went 3 times. At first I thought she was punishing me or getting me out of the hair or whatever, but it turned into be me, that being one of my favorite memories. And I went back there for 2 other years after that. I got so she was a parent to me, and she wasn't, I mean, she was a friend too, but she put the parenting first. And so she didn't let me get away with stuff. So being strong like that, I need that I need that just to have structure or whatever. And it taught me to have that later on in life too, to be that person. So being consistent with that kind of stuff, and giving options, and just being there with me, knowing that I didn't have to go through all that stuff alone, and there was somebody that wanted to be there to help.
Yeah, that's huge.
And do everything that they could do to do that. She showed me that, and gained my trust. And it didn't work out at first, but I think it worked out a lot. I have those memories and of how she treated me and how she took care of me. And so now it makes sense that I'm older.
There is always a method to our madness sometimes. So
Yes.
Mary, what advice would you give to foster adoptive kinship families who may be struggling with their young people?
Well, I think we have to give some of those foster parents credit though, because when they open their home, they do it with good intentions and love. And a lot of times you don't even know what's going to be walking through that door. And, even though I have a lot of kudos for social workers or social services and out there, we still have the ones that are still really young and they think they're doing their best and they don't have full knowledge. So they don't give a lot of the information about the kids, because if they really tell you what the kids have gone through, they really have that fear factor that you won't take them. And you know, and so many people will not talk about it, or there is so much argument within the adult world about that. I just first of all would say, if you can really pull that honesty out of the placement workers and that there, and really speak to the child, you know, I like, if I knew what I knew now back 40 years ago and this stuff, oh my gosh, I'd have a ton of awesome kids. Mind you, you know, it's just, it's nice to say, here's your bed and here's your bedroom. The only thing you can say is, you know, here's the home. We're going to figure out how to take each step in this home of how we can walk this residency together. Because, you know, they don't know if they're going to be coming and going, or, you know, even if it's going really good and then the parents do really good and then they walk back in and there's disruptions. So I always say, you know, let the child have the voice. You know, for me, telling foster parents now, even when, if we do trainings and out there, I just love it when kids flip me off, give me the finger and tell me to flake off and everything like that, because I have to thank them. You can't take it personal because they're showing you their pain. And that is so much there. So, and for me, I'm so appreciative that they trust me enough with their anger that I don't take it personal. Now, you take back 30, 40 years ago, you know, I was just right in the mix as if I was the same age and we were both cat fighting at, you know, the big shouting matches and this stuff. The thing is, like Josh had explained, you know, I had to learn along the way. And my teachers were not professionals. My teachers were those kids.
Yeah.
And especially being one of them. So I think, you know, you can't take anything literal, you know, literally. And when those kids yell and scream and get mad and out there, you have to allow them to have that space. You know what? So what if they punch a hole in the wall? So what if they tear things up and that stuff? Those things can be replaced. That little person can't be. So you know, you can't. But the other thing too is you have to even allow these children to say, okay, and knowing that they get respite or whatever it is, you can tell the kids, okay, you've got 2 days a month in this stuff. Where would you like to go? You know, who would you like to be? Find out what they want and find the respite care place that is going to give them that need. You can't just say, here, take them and have them just sit in a house. You know, if they want to go ice skating or doing something, find a respite care worker that is really going to do that for the child. So you have to think like that instead of just, you know, getting them out of your hair. Because if you feel you're just wanting to get them out of your hair and you don't understand them, then for me, I would honestly say to you, you know, step back, take a breather, go to more classes, you know, take care of yourself and then step back into it. Otherwise, if you can't do it, you know, man, these little kids have lives. And sometimes you have to listen to them, even if it means if they're going to scream their heads off and be naughty and that for 2-3 months and that there, let them be. Because the thing is, they haven't ran. They're just venting all their pain. And man, those old people carry a lot of pain. So you got to allow them to have that safe spot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's great. I'm a kindred spirit because I like it when my kids get mad at me because I'm like, I'm doing my job. So one of the questions we have is if the person with addiction doesn't want to get help and are in denial that they need help, how can you help them? So I don't know, Erica or Joshua, I'm thinking maybe one of you two could speak well to that one. Erica, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I didn't want to cut him off if he was going to jump in. So I think sometimes some of it starts with our language. So unfortunately, like I said, so like mental health is becoming a new frontier that we're really like exploring. But the second we kind of throw out that addiction word, a lot of people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's not that bad. So what I always kind of phrase to, especially our adolescent clients is it maybe just getting in the way of some of the goals you have in life? Or is this maybe just not having the best effect you were hoping it would have? Yes, you're using it to like blow off a little steam, have some fun, like Josh was talking about, numb out a little bit. But what are some of the negative consequences that we're having from it? And not necessarily label it full-blown addiction, but just that it's having a lot of negative consequences in our life. And that maybe if we changed it a little bit, some of those negative consequences necessarily wouldn't be there anymore. So kind of sometimes just playing around with our wording a little bit, especially with young ones, they hear that A word and they're like, it's not an addiction. Everybody does it. Okay, but like it's really negative, like affecting some of the choices you have going on in your life. So maybe we can fix that.
Sure. Okay. I have a question for Fabian or Joshua. Would you advocate for youth to be court ordered into an inpatient private paid program? The youth presents as wanting help, but is not voluntarily wanting to attend an inpatient program. Any thoughts there? Joshua?
It worked. It worked for me, not at the time, but afterwards. Like I said, for me to go into those places, for one, it gives me a time to breathe, to clear my head, to get out of that, whatever I was going through or whatever. It gave me a place to kind of like think and everything. So, I obviously didn't go into those treatments willingly. I had to go into those treatments, but just me being there and being able to clear my head and at least think about what's going on and learn. And like I said, I learned a lot about myself and my problems and feelings and a lot of things that they don't teach you in school. A lot of the things that I thought that were okay with life, I learned that we're not okay with life and they're not normal. Some of the things that, that I went through that I thought that everybody would go through, that was not normal. And so it's kind of hard. Like, you would think the answer would be to not force them into a treatment center or court order them. But for me, it helped me a lot, not until later into life, because I don't believe that you can make somebody be sober until they're ready to be sober themselves, until they surrender and ask for the help themselves. But I was kind of showed a different way, like a different window to look through of, a different way to live. There's another door that you can go to. So there's at least an option. So when you are ready, I had something, it was like, you know what, there was another option. There was another door. There was something that I learned, that you can do this life, or, it was just another option for me that I was taught. So that's why I think it's a good thing. I mean, my mom had a lot of tough love, and so she stuck to her guns on stuff. And in the end, like, that has something for me to look back upon when I am ready. So it's kind of like getting them ready for something.
Awesome. So I have another question that is, what is the most powerful way to help youth increase their self-esteem and sense of self-worth? Fabian, do you have some thoughts there?
Yeah, I do. I would just say explore different avenues, whether that be, running, biking, karate, etc. Find something that they enjoy doing, that they're good at, and to encourage them to keep doing it. And usually that works pretty well. I know in my case, I was given a guitar, and I was encouraged to play, even if even when I wasn't good at it, or singing, I wasn't good at it. I was encouraged to continue to do it, just because it was at the time I didn't realize how big of an outlet it was, but looking back, it was something that helped me build self-esteem, because didn't have any self-esteem. And then when and then you get good at it, and you go start showing your friends, and your friend, oh, that's so cool. And then, even adults, I remember like having high school teachers, dang, that's really awesome. That's awesome. You can play that. You can do that. I never know you can do that. And it just gives you it builds your self-esteem, and not so much to where you have an ego, but to know that, hey, I'm not, I'm not a victim. I've survived this. I've overcame it. And it helped me build a lot of self-esteem, and it's different for everybody, but I think that's probably one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah, that's great. Mary, did you have something you wanted to add?
I did. I think one of the things, especially with these young people, what they taught me after all these years, even about myself, is that, you kind of have to put yourself, I always tell the adults, put yourself in when, the closest person to you in the world dies, and what that feels like when they say, your mother or your somebody, your child or somebody has died. Feel those emotions, because our young people that are in out of home placement feel that almost every day. So if you do not allow them to mourn what they have, what they only know, um, it's tough, So that's why I always say, you just, even sometimes even sharing a story or having some familiarity so you can cross that bridge for one another, so you can have that communication and be, the honesty is really good. I mean, we had a lot of other foster care kids in there in the home and out there. And I used to always say, you know what? I don't know if you're going to be here tomorrow, but I'm sure hoping for. And the thing is, I would always put their number or tell them someplace on their favorite jacket, in their lunch, whatever it is, when you go home, and if you ever just need to talk, just call me. I kind of did some things that we weren't supposed to do as foster care parents, but I believed in these children well enough. And, I got a lot of phone calls, even when I used to take the kids to visit their moms and this stuff and out there, just showing those children that I have compassion about their parents. I'm not going to say they're drunks or druggies and all this stuff. I just make sure that, if I've dropped the kids off, they're going to spend the night with their parents. I put cereal in their lunch boxes. I put all this food in out there. Tell the kids, this is your donation. This is what, and a lot of them knew me as their grandmother. And I would take them there. And then I'd ask the biological moms, throw some clothes, what they need or what you need in this stuff in a garbage bag. I have nothing to do, since you got the kids. It didn't hurt me to do 1, 2, 3 bags of washing and stuff. So when I went and picked up the kids, I always took another bag of groceries, and I took their bag of clean clothes and this stuff. And, and I didn't care if they swear at me or did all this stuff in out there. But I always said, you know what? Yes, you get those foster care dollars. And if those kids are going to be out of those house for 2 or 3 days and this stuff, I take those daily pre-dimes and this stuff, and I made sure it went right with the kids and out there. So there's, it's just doing that so that those kids can really see that the world isn't so cruel or to be so frightful. And,
Yeah.
you just have to take that extra step in out there. But I think that's the one thing that is really important is allow them to mourn the loss, because, even though we may not think it's healthy, but to them, that's all they know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. We are just about out of time. Erica, I wanted to see if there was anything last thoughts you wanted to add to.
I think everybody had some beautiful, great last thoughts. My last little tidbit is just advocate for your kids. And I think you kind of alluded to it, that it's hard out there, especially when you're trying to seek help, and just never keep fighting, keep advocating for your kids. That you're the best advocate they have. So just keep fighting. When one person tells you no, turn around to the next and ask that person, and just keep going.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, I have a high school junior. High school is a hard place to be too, in general. I don't care what your experience is. All the kids all are just trying to figure out who they are and where they want to be in the world. So, just giving them all some space is important, and just taking the extra time sometimes to spend with them and talk them through whatever they're going through is super, super important. I have a couple of slides I wanted to share as we close out today. The first is just a list of resources. Included in here is Erica Sandstone's Care Child Risk Assessment that you guys can take, you know, just to see where you think your kids are at. You know, Al-Anon, the American Academy of Pediatrics, has created just a focus initiative on foster care. So they have a lot of really great resources, some on mental health. So those are definitely worth checking out. And with our last slide, you guys can always find more about Fostering Families Today and our Youth Voice program in these places. And I really appreciate all of you for joining us today, all of our people with lived experience, especially for sharing your experiences, because we all can't learn and grow without your willingness to share and guide us on the way. So I appreciate everyone, and I hope you have a great Thursday.